Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Monday, March 17th, 2025 West Fargo City Commission meeting. Call the meeting to order. Would you please join the commission in a pledge to the flag? Thank you. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Jorgensen.
Present.
Commissioner Zundell.
Present.
Commissioner Jardis.
Present.
Commissioner Olson.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Records show that all commissioners are present. The first order of business is to approve the order of the agenda. It has been distributed and in your packets.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Anderson moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Zundell seconds. Been moved and approved, seconded to approve the order of the agenda as distributed. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item E is the approval of the minutes of March 3rd, 2025.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Olson moves to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Jorgensen seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of March 3rd as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is the building permits. This report has been distributed and in your packets.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Zundell moves to approve the building permits as distributed. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. I have a motion and a second to approve the building permits report. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is the consent agenda. Commissioners, we have item A through H on the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Olson moves to approve the consent agenda items A through H. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Is there any discussion? We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We are now in the regular agenda. Item number 1 on the regular agenda is public comment. Madam Secretary, do we have anybody signed up for public comment?
I do not.
Thank you. Public comment is closed. We move on to item number 2, public hearings. Are there any public hearings this evening, Madam Secretary?
I do not have anything.
Thank you. Item 2 is closed. We now want to move on to number 3, Neighborhood Revitalization Program. We're going to call on Lisa Sankey, planner for the city of West Fargo, and request for a program renewal for 2025. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you, Commission President Jardis and Commissioners. The request before you is to reapprove the West Fargo Neighborhood Revitalization Program. Since 2019, the city has partnered with Gate City to promote and administer the West Fargo Neighborhood Revitalization Program, a low-interest loan program for home improvement projects in select areas. Representatives from Gate City Bank are here this evening to provide any additional information on the program, and I'm able to answer any questions as well.
Any questions for Ms. Sankey before we go to the Gate City group? Very good. Thank you. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you so much for having us. We're super excited to continue our relationship with the city. Like Lisa said, we have been partnering with the city of West Fargo since 2019, offering those low interest loans, and we're open for questions to see if you have anything for us tonight.
Any questions for Gate City?
No? All right. Well, thank you so much for having us.
Please pass on to your management team that we're grateful for this program. It's been substantially used in the community, so we're grateful for that as well. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. We now move on to item number 4, the Matt Bus Trent. I apologize. Let's have a motion and a second on renewing the program, please.
I move to approve.
Commissioner Zundell moves to renew the neighborhood revitalization program with Gate City Bank. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. I have a motion and a second to renew the program with neighborhood revitalization program. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Again, thank you, Gate City. Number 4 is the Matt Bus Transit Development Plan Project Update. Again, we call on Lisa Sankey, planner for the city of West Fargo. An informational item only. There's no action to be taken.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Mr. Blue Weber, who's going to provide a project update on the MAT Transit Development Project.
Good evening and welcome.
So my name is Blue Weber. I work for firm Bolton and May. Here to just give an update on the transit development plan. These are plans that are done locally every 5 years, really to look at transit in the entire area and make some recommendations both on routes, but overall just service scenarios and things like that. We're at about 50% of the way through, and so I just wanted to come and give you some updates, let you know what next steps are, and how much we're also looking for your feedback, as well as any members of the public from the West Fargo area looking for some feedback. Sorry, I know. Perfect. So like I said, this is a transit development plan done every 5 years by MetroCog. They're the ones who administer it, but we really do partner directly with MatBus to get their perspective. And we've done a number of different focus groups and different opportunities to gain feedback from the public. So where we're at right now is on our service scenarios. So to just jump into things, we've been starting by looking at our existing conditions. I don't know, is it easier for me to? Perfect. These transit development plans are really just to make a strategic plan that identifies the entire transit service area, look at some of the future conditions, make some recommendations, as well as how to basically make the best transit system in the entire area. And so with that, we started with some existing conditions. Next slide will take us over to those existing conditions where we can jump into things. There we go. Can we hear me? I will back up. I am a very loud person, so I don't need to be that close to it. We started by going through our existing conditions. This was gaining a lot of feedback from current ridership and also just looking at the existing conditions. So looking at ridership on the different routes, looking at every element of it and kind of just establishing those existing conditions. The next steps are looking at some of those future those future system needs. So this is identifying where potential routes are going to be, as well as some of the different elements that maybe are more nuanced when it comes to a transit system. So with that, we can jump to our next slide. The first thing that we do is we really look at some of the data that's here. So this is everything from the data across the Fargo-Moorhead, Dilworth, Horace area, as well as West Fargo is a huge piece of this. And so that's everything from some household income as far as some demographic information as well to kind of give us that structure behind what makes a good system. From there, we really started to look at the service area itself. So that's on the next slide is where we start to dive into where some of the census blocks live, as well as what some of the areas are around that. We can jump to the next slide. Perfect. And so trying to make sure that when we're establishing different transit routes, we're also meeting any of those specific kind of demographic issues that we're looking for. So those are low-income households, senior populations, as well as vehicle-free households, and really how do we get transit to those different areas of town. So next slide is going to be where we started to, what we heard from the community on these initial phases. So this was everything from how often are people using the transit system, as well as what are kind of the ways that they're engaging with it, what are some of the different purposes for their trips. Probably one of the more fascinating things to me was how high medical appointments and errands actually came up in this. I was always thinking work was going to be the number one ridership, but really seeing that it's a community benefit, not just a workforce benefit. I think those go a little bit more hand in hand, though. So the next slide is going to be some of the other things that we heard. So how often people are using these transfers. So this is when people have to jump from one bus to another, and hearing that a lot of people are actually doing this. So a lot of people who are currently using it know exactly where to get to. Access being a major priority on this. This was actually something that was different from the last transit development plan. So this was a really important thing for us to look at when coming up with some of these service scenarios, was knowing that people actually now want more shorter trips to the bus stops. That's different from what it was 5 years ago. Could lean into some of the COVID issues, but things like that. And then some of the service expansion priorities, these were what people are looking at outside of just the fixed transit routes. What are some of the different things that they're looking at? So Sunday service is a huge one. I think that's both for workforce, but also for people getting to faith-based institutions and making sure that we have a more consistent transit system throughout the entire week. With that, perfect. One of the tools, man, I am just loud. I apologize for that. We used a really fun tool that was a mapping. And so we were able to really allow people to give us feedback on specific areas. And so I don't think that anything is too surprising here, but this really did guide some of our service scenarios that we went into in the next phase, was making sure that we were addressing what we heard from the public. So this is where they're wanting some of these routes, as well as some of the different issues that they were facing as community members. From there, we can jump to our next slide. Perfect. So this really is how we started to look at where those most productive areas are, where the most ridership is happening. And so really seeing that around that NDSU area, probably not a huge surprise, but also West Acres being a huge transfer point. This is actually the most active transfer point outside of the GTC. So knowing that we want to really focus on that, how do we get things back to that major area? So that we can jump to our next slide. And this was another way for us to kind of look at what that ridership actually shows. So looking at it with scale, kind of seeing where some of these routes are. So those higher indicators are where people are jumping on and getting off. And so you can kind of see that a lot of these major points are where people were using it to get to their destinations, while some of those different transit routes themselves weren't as focused on that. And our next slide. So next, what I'm here to talk to you all about and try to see if you have feedback to send off to us, as well as really use this as a marketing tool to get some more feedback from the public as well, is these scenarios. So from here, we came up with a couple scenarios. The idea here is very much just some refinement. We're not trying to overhaul the entire system. What we've heard throughout this entire process is that the transit system works really well. People like it throughout the community, so we don't need to completely overhaul. It's just trying to figure out what are some of those changes that we need to do. So our next slide is where we'll talk a little bit about the two scenarios. So through all of the different feedback that we heard, we really wanted to try to stress test some of these concepts. So it's not as much saying, here's exactly what we're gonna do, but here's some of the concepts. So scenario one, on this next slide, sorry. Perfect. So scenario one really tries to maintain some fixed routes, but really realign those fixed routes. Scenario two utilizes something called on-demand. This is more basically similar to Uber or Lyft, but using the actual transit system at a more affordable cost, and look at these areas. So you can kind of see those bigger block areas. West Fargo being a major one there, really would mean door-to-door service. So this is somebody being able to call a transit bus to come and grab them and take them directly to another location. This is meant more to get people over to some of those fixed routes, but operate in the entire area. So both of these scenarios aren't necessarily to say, here's what this is gonna look like, but it's to try out some of the different ideas that we want and hear from the public which things work, which things don't. And so an open house that we had 2 weeks ago was a perfect opportunity for us to talk to members of the public and say, hey, what is it that you like about this route? What is it that you like about this scenario? And that's really what our website is designed to be right now. And so with our next slide, we can at least look at kind of what those existing conditions are. So this is what that existing network is currently. And just a couple points that I wanted to make on this for at least some of the existing conditions, some of the the information that we had was Route 20 that comes through West Fargo has an average daily boarding of about 122 on a weekday and then 86 on Saturdays. That boarding, really it means that this is one of our top locations. So maintaining that as one of those key locations is super important. Route 24, which goes from West Acres over to 9th and 32nd, this has an average boarding of 120 on the weekdays and 90 on Saturdays. So this is another one of those really, really highly rated locations. So maintaining those locations and then trying to incorporate what we heard from the different surveys and from that input map. With our next slide, it shows a little bit more what scenario 1 really starts to look at. So you can see that some of the different routes here, really just trying to realign, trying to meet some of the demand that's happening around the area, but also trying to design it around maybe where some potential development is happening. And so this is not exactly how things are going to look. It's more or less just to try out some concepts, get some feedback from people. Scenario 2 is where we kind of try out that more on-demand model. So we can jump to our next slide. So these blocks are like that on-demand model that I was explaining. And these really can be set at the local level for what the cost is. So it is meant to be very competitive with Uber, Lyft, things like that. But is meant to be a way for people around that area to connect back to the main transit network. And I'm going very, very high level because I just wanted to come and kind of brief you all, let you know what was going on. And then my next slide is where we'll talk a little bit about some of those expansion scenarios. So these are the things outside of the actual transit routes that we're talking about. So obviously expanding Sunday service is going to be a huge one, but also looking at things like additional West Fargo service. And so how do we start to weigh that in? How do we start to think about what that looks like, but then really start to also dive into the capital and what these things cost. Whenever we're adding new lines or adding new bus routes, those come with a cost. And so really starting to at least start the conversation now because we're not done. This will continue all the way until August, but we're at a really good point where we want feedback from the community. We want feedback from city leadership as well on what this looks like. So with that, we can jump to our next slide. Perfect. So we did just have that open house. One of the benefits here, though, is that we really tried to open up a very long engagement period. So this is open all the way until April 1st. So really trying to use today's meeting as a way to kind of drum up some more support. We're hearing a lot from current ridership, which is fantastic. What we want to hear from is people who aren't currently riding the system. We have really good outreach into those communities of ridership. So coming here and chatting with you all, if you have people in your networks that you're hearing from that want to give some feedback on transit, this is a perfect opportunity. This is not the last opportunity, but this is also a great way for us to at least get our name out there more and more. We have a West Fargo specific survey that we've created, so I am working with Aaron Nelson on getting that out. And then at our open house, some of the members from Civic West also showed up, and we're excited to be a part of this process. So they're going to share out this survey. This is really similar to our website survey that we have, but more focused on what routes look like here in West Fargo, so we can get some more feedback where the additional routes should go, maybe additional ridership could grow if we had a new route here. So like I said, I was trying to go really fast, just kind of give you kind of a brief overview, and so I stand for any questions.
Questions? Commissioner Zundell,
I have a few questions, if that's okay.
Of course.
please.
Can you explain the on-demand process?
Yeah. And so on the website, we have a little bit better of a graphic and things like that. So on-demand really is these almost areas where you would have a number of smaller buses that are moving around in that area. So you would use an app, the same as the Map Bus app, and then you would call the bus. It would come and pick you up directly where you're at, and then would take you to wherever you're going.
So with the people who are riding, I guess, is the concern in switching to something like on-demand that we're moving in the reverse of something like equity and inclusion for the target groups?
You could still call in, so it wouldn't necessarily need to use just a smartphone. You could still call in, similar to paratransit, but more of an all-encompassing system.
Sure. And then could you go back to the route maps for me, please? How would someone, let's say, who's in the north part of West Fargo, I saw like medical appointments, how would they get on your current routes from some pocket of West Fargo to Sanford and then Essentia and then the VA hospital, and how frequently are those routes during the day?
So those routes, we're going to have all those on the website. I can't really answer that right here in thinking about that. You'd have to take a couple connections is what that would be ultimately.
Okay.
Are you thinking areas that currently aren't being serviced? Is that what you're asking more?
I just feel like my concern, and I'm interested to see how the West Fargo stuff comes through, is that if we're talking about regional stuff, I think it's probably way easier regionally. When I look at West Fargo and I look at what people are doing or using for transit, I guess some of my concerns are those uses that we've described or what people have taken the survey for don't really look like they're getting serviced fully in West Fargo. Some of the things that I worry about are, I mean, we have a new city hall that's moved essentially somewhat off of Route 20. We have no connections to where city hall is. The Rusted Recreation Center across the street, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we have probably 90 to 130 seniors who come take a class. That's nowhere on the route. I look at Cheyenne Street, which is in theory supposed to be like a culmination of downtown. I see no route ridership along anywhere where you would have access to any of those businesses if you were running errands or wanting to do things. So I guess my concern number one is I think if we're polling the people who are using current services, you're going to probably get a very good reflection of Fargo ridership.
Yep.
On the West Fargo side, I just worry about cutting and changing routes because we're cutting and changing it off of what's currently available and not what we've tried before. And so those are some of my initial, it would be nice to see Hornbachers. Cash-wise, it would be nice to feel like someone from West Fargo could, in theory, go to Sanford, the VA, and Essentia Health, and like in looking at this and looking at the stuff online, you would have to really align a lot of magic times to get an appointment, and there would be a lot of very excessive waiting. So if the major thing is medical appointments, I don't think West Fargo is being serviced in that way.
Excellent. And one thing, I probably brushed over this too fast. With those two service scenarios, those aren't exactly how we're planning on actually implementation. It's more or less that we had 100 ideas, so we kind of wanted to stress test a couple ideas. We probably could have set out service scenarios 5, 6, 7, 8. It was just an easy way to at least start to have this conversation. So this is the kind of feedback we need because as of at the end of April is when we'll really start to refine those visions. And so exactly like what you're asking, those are things that are important for us to make sure that make it into the final.
And I think the concepts even of like ridership on demand, I think even going to meet with the senior group that meets at the high rise, I would be very interested in their specific feedback on how they feel like using something on demand would work. Because I'm trying to envision my grandma trying to have to figure out how to call an app to say like, hey, I'm going to be at this destination in 15 to 20 minutes, please come get me, and then dropping you off. So I guess I have a lot of concerns about how we would potentially educate groups of people on that. But
It's one of the benefits and disadvantages of an on-demand is you have a brand new system that's going to operate a little differently. And I know currently there is some up in the industrial park, so it's a very specific group that's utilizing it. So when we're bringing that into a broader market, yeah, it is a piece of what, if MapBus decides to go that route with implementing some on-demand, it's going to be a huge aspect of it is communicating.
I think my one last comment would be I think a group of people that we're missing, especially if you're looking at trying to mimic like Uber or something like that, I think when you're looking at drinking and driving or people finding sober rides, I think there's probably an opportunity to do that again in Fargo, but I'm looking at, again, where our restaurants are, where
Yep.
all of the action is happening in West Fargo, and I'm thinking if you're even a younger scenario, MapBus would not be a choice, seemingly based on how it is now, without some type of option. So
No, and
all that.
once again, I really appreciate that feedback. It's why we're here, is to hear from you, because this is, it's an area that's currently not probably as much service as I think anybody would like. So trying to figure out, well, what does that look like down the road?
Any additional questions, commissioners? Mayor, Rory?
How would a business try to get on this, their route? I talked to the manager of Hornbachers. They're on board. They want a route. And then we also, I don't think we have any shelters for any of our stops in West Fargo.
No, and I know MapBus is working on, they have a couple other shelters currently. So some of that team, when we had the open house, we were talking to them a little bit. So I know that they have ordered some other shelters. But that's another really good opportunity for the city of West Fargo and Matt Bus to continue to work together, is try to figure out what that looks like.
So
That's
back to my
probably
deal. So
not
like
me.
Howard Hornbachers, who would they contact?
They can contact me directly.
Okay.
And so on that website, we have all that information. So
Okay.
anybody who wants to go to it, it's, if you type in MapBus 2030, it usually pops up on that search engine right away.
Okay.
And so that's both for general public, but then also for specific people like that. And then if they want to have more conversations with me, I love having those conversations. So yeah,
Okay, I will pass that along. Thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Again, Commissioners, this is an informational-only item. There's no action required. We move on to item number 5 at the Board of Adjustment, A25-2 Maple Ridge at the Preserve, 4th Edition, a request for a variance to the building control line of the Cheyenne River Corridor Outlay District. This was tabled on February 24th. We're going to call on Lisa Sankey, again, the planner for the city of West Fargo, to facilitate us through this discussion.
Thank you. At the February 24th meeting, the City Commission, acting as the Board of Adjustments, tabled action on the variance request until a letter was received from Southeast Cass Water Resource District regarding the West Fargo Cheyenne River setbacks. The letter encourages the City of West Fargo to consider updating the ordinance limiting variances on future applications, except in cases of hardship as determined by the city. The letter has been reviewed by the city engineer. Staff finds that the application meets the requirements of the current ordinance, and recommendations for approval have not changed. I'm available to answer any questions, as is the city engineer, and the applicant is here as well.
Any questions, Commissioners? Okay. At this time, we gabble out of the regular agenda, and we are now in the Board of Adjustment. The West Fargo City Commission serves as a Board of Adjustment. This item had been tabled, so we would have to take the process of bringing it back for discussion at this time, if you so choose.
I make a motion to bring the item back for discussion.
Commissioner Zundell moves to to bring back the tabled item A25-2 Maple Ridge at the Preserve 4th Edition. Is there a second?
Second.
I have Commissioner Anderson makes a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Commissioners, we are now in a discussion as the Board of Adjustment on this item.
I make a motion to approve the request A25-2 for request for variance.
I have a motion to approve A25-2 Maple Ridge at the Preserve 4th Edition. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second, Commissioner Jorgensen. It's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We now gavel out of the Board of Adjustment. We are back into the regular agenda, and we are on item number 6. Item number 6 is an improvement district number 2294, 6th Street and 23rd Avenue East intersection improvements. We're going to call on Mr. Dan Hansen, our city engineer. The purpose of this discussion is to rescind the previously adopted resolution declaring petition for improvements received and approve an engineer's report and direct plans and specifications. Mr. Hansen, good evening and welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner President Dardis and Commissioners. Just as a point of clarification for the rescinding the previous resolution that was passed at the recent commission meeting, is that the petition that we had received inaccurately stated that it was from a majority of the area of the property within the district. The Dakota Medical Foundation is who we received the petition from. However, their property does not make up a majority of the area. So it's still a good petition. We're still going to receive it, file it with the project. But I wanted to, as a point of clarification and working with legal, it would be appropriate for us to rescind that resolution because it did inaccurately state that they were a majority of the area of the district. So if there's any questions on that, I can answer. If not, I'll move forward with the rest of this.
Questions for Mr. Hanson?
Again, this is a project that we've talked about. This is at the intersection of 6th Street and 23rd Avenue, just on the southwest side of Costco. Recently, the city has been, and you'll see in one of the next projects I'm here to talk about, DMF is looking at, the Dakota Medical Foundation is looking at improving their property for development to the west of Costco. This development, as well as the development across the street and overall in this area, is going to produce additional traffic on this intersection. There has been studies done in the past that have suggested that we needed to do some form of intersection improvements prior to the area developing, because if we wait until after the area develops, the intersection A would already be fairly inundated with traffic, and given an existing condition carrying out to that point, it would be operating very poorly. So it would be prudent for us to move forward with some form of improvement. There was a recent study done on this intersection, as I presented last time, that did state, technically speaking, that both a roundabout option and a signalized option of that intersection are both viable options, with the roundabout performing better over time as well as a bit safer. However, the signalized intersection does also perform adequately, and again, there also are safety improvements that occur when you signalize an intersection. So there's a difference in cost between these two options. As you see in the report, traffic signal at the intersection is estimated to be approximately $1,467,000, where a single lane roundabout is estimated to be $2,313,000. So there is a bit of a disparity between the two projects. And again, from an engineering perspective, the report that we got from the consultant showed that either are acceptable. So what I'd like tonight is, if we move forward with the project and the motion is made to approve the report and direct the plans and specifications, we would like to get direction from the commissioner that's making that recommendation or that motion to make the motion whether we are to move forward with a signalized intersection or a roundabout intersection. And then I would also add that if we are moving forward with a signalized intersection, prior to moving forward with the design and getting full bore into design, the first step would be for us to communicate with the North Dakota DOT to let them know that we are intending to put a signal here. Currently, as the report stated, a signal is not warranted at that intersection. However, the 5-year traffic projections for the intersection do show that it will be warranted for that projected traffic. And typically that is enough for the DOT to be in agreement with the warrants. So we wouldn't want to get in the process of designing a project and have the DOT not agree with that assumption. So we would cross that T and dot those I's before actually moving forward with the design of the signal. And with that, I would entertain any questions.
Questions? Mr. Hanson? Commissioner Zundel?
Where would the special assessments go to? I see kind of a third, looks like it's supposed to be special assessments. Would you be is that what the yellow portion is?
Yeah, there's a map in there that's fairly colorful, right there. So the yellow is the improvement district, 2294, that we would have for this project. You can see in the red box is the location of the intersection. Where this improvement district, how this improvement district was set up is it reflects the same improvement district for the commercial side of the commercial properties that were included in the improvement district when 23rd Avenue was originally constructed, because 23rd Avenue is a local collector, and so we thought it appropriate to reflect that same improvement district that we had for the construction of 23rd Avenue, because this intersection is a function of 23rd Avenue. So again, that's what's being proposed. Eventually it will go forth in front of the Special Assessment Commission, and they can make comment on whether this is appropriate or not. And I'd also take feedback as well from you.
Thank you.
Additional questions for Mr. Hanson? All right. We're going to go back to item number 6, and I'd like a motion, please, to rescind the adopted resolution.
I'll move.
Commissioner Jorgensen moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. A motion and a second to rescind the previously adopted resolution declaring a petition for improvements for 2294. Any further discussion?
I just have a question. Was that Anderson or Olson? Okay.
Olson second. They both did, but
He declares all ties.
any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, Commissioners, now we're on item number 7. Obviously, it's a similar intersection.
Nope, we got it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
6.
Commissioner President, the other part of the item number 6 was to move forward with either roundabout or signalized intersection. And we would be looking for approving the engineer's report and directing the plans and specifications.
Okay, Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve the engineer's report and direct plans and specifications for a traffic signal.
Is there a second, please? Is there a second, please?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept plans and specifications for a traffic signal. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Item number 7 is the Improvement District 1353, Dakota Medical Foundation Development. Accept a petition for improvements, approve the engineer's report, direct plans and specifications, and improve a task order.
Thank you, Commissioner President Dardis and Commissioners. As stated in the last item, the Dakota Medical Foundation has petitioned the city for improvements to their site. This is all a site that will be developed for land that they own. It's in the process of being platted, and they do have somebody already looking to build on the their northern properties. So they're looking to move forward with this fairly quickly. An engineer's report is included in the packet. The estimated cost for the project is $2.57 million. I have provided the feasibility study to the developer and did not receive any comments back from that. However, I did have conversations with their realtor today, but we mainly just talked about the plat. So with this would be to install all of the roadways and the public utilities to service that development. The intention is that all of the costs for this project would be 100% especially assessed to abutting properties within that improvement district. And with that, I would entertain questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Commissioners, questions?
Make motion to approve.
Commissioner Olson moves to approve Improvement District 1353 for the Dakota Medical Foundation. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Jorgensen seconds. I have a motion and a second to approve 1353 to accept a petition for improvements, approve engineer's report, and direct plans and specifications. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We are now on item number 8. And item number 8 is the 2025 concrete pavement repair projects for the city of West Fargo, various city locations. It's to create project number 2291 and direct and approve an engineer's report, direct and approve plans and specifications, and direct advertisement for bids. Mr. Hanson.
Thank you, Commissioner President Dardis and Commissioners. This project is our ongoing concrete pavement repair projects each summer. Public Works and Engineering team up to go and identify areas and panels of concrete roadways within our city that need repair due to cracking or faulting, and they have been identified. This is a project that has been designed in-house by engineering staff and we would look to bid the project, but we will also have the construction administration of this project done by our internal staff as well. Not only are we looking to replace cracked panels in this project, but we would also be looking to replace pedestrian ramps that would be located in various locations throughout the city, as well as contained within the Public Works Mill and Overlay Project area, as the ADA law states that if you're going to do anything more than seal coat, basically, you need to make sure all the pedestrian ramps in those neighborhoods are ADA compliant. So incorporated into this project is not only the concrete pavement repairs, but also the replacement of pedestrian ramps throughout the city that have been identified to get ADA compliant. These are both costs that were included in the approved 2024 CIP. The estimated total cost of the project is $1,804,000. The capital improvement plan had a budget of $1,825,000 in it, which consisted of the $1.5 million in the concrete pavement repair, as well as $325,000 for the replacement of pedestrian ramps. So we're basically in line with what, with our estimate to what was presented in the approved 2024 CIP. And with that, I would entertain questions.
Questions for Mr. Hanson?
Make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Olson moves to approve the 2025 concrete pavement repair and overlay projects. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Sundell seconds. I have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Mr. Hanson. Item number 9 is a budget amendment, 2025 Street Department budget. We call on Willie Galindo, our Finance Director for the City of West Fargo, for this discussion. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Commissioners. Good evening, President Commissioner. And I stand before you, making a request here. Back in the 2024, when we did the 2025 budget, there was $250,000 that we had earmarked for the street crew projects. That included 2 vehicles and some other project costs for the street crew department. This is going to be more of a technical item because during the whole process of putting it into our ERP system, we did not put that budget in under the department's expenditures. So in this case, we are requesting to amend and increase the budget for the street crew department by $250,000. And I stand in front of you and ready to answer any questions that you have.
Commissioners, any question for Mr. Galindo? Okay, this is an actionable item, Commissioners.
I make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Zundell moves to approve the budget amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Anderson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the budget amendment, 2025 Street Department budget, which is basically a clerical type of conversion that we have to do. And so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Item number 10 is a public access channel. Mr. Scott, City Administrator.
Good evening. Thank you, Commission President Dardis and Commissioners. So this particular item, there's really 2 parts. I'm going to give a little background and then walk you through each part separately. So through our franchise agreement with our cable providers, Mid-Continent and Sparklight, we do have an opportunity to broadcast a public access channel. Up until about April or May of 2024, we had broadcast that channel through Mid-Continent and aired content, including city commission meetings, the Weather Channel, and other city business, along with a couple churches in town would bring over their content, and we would air that as well. So that, I'm not sure how long we had that public access channel, but it was a host of many different types of content. Due to the aging technology, we were not able to bring that channel online over at this new building. It requires some special connections. So before I get into the next part, I want to make it clear that the public access channel has not been broadcast since last spring, and we would need to install infrastructure in order to get it online here at our new commission chambers. We are estimating roughly $1,000. It's pretty much, according to our IT director, just purchasing a laptop computer, getting that set up and hooked in, working with the cable providers to get things running. Along with the laptop, we do have an annual subscription cost of roughly $700 a year that would be required to get this channel up and functioning again. So really the first question is whether or not we want to go that route. And if so, I will go through the second part of this before we come back to item 1 for a decision. If we do decide to get the public access channel working again, our recommendation would be to develop a policy that would restrict the content to local government only. So basically no private content would be aired, which would include religion. So I will go back to the first part and ask the commission if you would like to direct staff to get the public access channel working again.
Commissioners? Commissioner Zundel?
My concern with getting it active again is that, I mean, I feel like we are servicing the needs of people who want to watch commission meetings, things like that, essentially through a YouTube channel. So I'm not sure I understand the need for an additional cost to that, especially if we're not going to stream anything private. I mean, I think we're already streaming, and we've found kind of a workaround to it, is my opinion.
Anyone else? Commissioner Anderson?
Are we required to have a public access channel by any laws or anything?
No, we are not required to do that. Nope. We are quite required to publish meeting minutes, so on and so forth. We go, quite frankly, with our platforms that we are on, we go above and beyond what is legally required. And I did fail to mention that, you know, we will certainly continue to publish our content on our current social media platforms, YouTube, and Rachel is also looking into streaming our meetings over Facebook as well, so expanding our presence online.
So is an option that we vote to just continue to not have a public access channel, is that an action that we could take?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Anyone else? It's your pleasure.
I make a motion that we continue to essentially do what we've been doing for the last year and utilize the public platforms of YouTube/social media to broadcast our meetings.
So discontinue the public access channel.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Would you repeat the?
It was worded so wonderfully the first time. I make a motion to discontinue the use of a public access channel and instead continue to publicly broadcast our meetings through YouTube / looking into additional options for future enhancement of that.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Item number 11 is a closed executive session pursuant to North Dakota Century Code 44-04-19.2, Subdivision 1 and North Dakota Century Code 44-04-19.1, Subdivision 9, to negotiate a contract relating to the employment of City Administrator Dustin Scott. So, we are going to go into executive session. We're going to gavel out of our regular agenda. We are now out of the regular agenda, and the commissioners and Ms. Schmidt and we'll be back. We're going into the West Fargo room for an executive session. We are now back into the regular agenda of the West Fargo City Commission meeting for March 17th. Next order of business is the city administrator's report. What did I do?
We have to make motion. Based on item number 11, I make a motion that we direct staff to enter into negotiations of the contract.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Scott.
Good evening again, Commissioners. I'll be real brief here. I don't really have anything to share with you. I just want to extend a sincere thank you to the Chamber for hosting a wonderful ribbon cutting. They had a great turnout for us today. I want to thank staff again for all of their hard work in making not only today happen and all the work that they've done in getting this place up and running, and of course, thank the Commission for your continued support. With that, I will stand for any questions.
Questions for Mr. Scott? Thank you.
Thank you.
All correspondence has been distributed to you, Commissioners. Does any Commissioner have any non-agenda item they'd like to bring forward at this time? Does any department head have anything that they'd like to bring forward as a non-agenda item this evening? Commissioner Jorgensen.
Motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Zundell.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.